Awareness, the final frontier. These are the explorations of Jonathan Robinson and Brian Tom O'Connor. Their continuing mission, to discover fresh new paths to the mystery within, to seek out new joys and new methods of awakening, to boldly go into the heart of expanded consciousness. This is Awareness Explorers.
Well, welcome back, Awareness Explorers. It's great to have you back and always sharing the truth of our true nature. I'm Jonathan Robinson, and I'm with my co-host,
Brian Tom O'Connor.
And I'm very excited about today's topic because I think there's so much exploring to do, so much misunderstanding, so much to make use of it. I'm trying to hype the mystery of it. What we're going to talk about today is the power of intention. When I say those words, Brian, what's the first thing you think of?
When I think of the power of intention, I think that people mean I'm going to manifest something through the power of my thought and make something happen in the real world as sort of a law of attraction kind of thing, which I'm not really a big fan of, although I'm open-minded about and actually secretly wish it were true, but I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Well, that's one way of looking at intention. I'm glad you brought that up because that, whether one believes in the law of attraction or manifestation or all those things, they probably are quite different than another way of looking at the power of intention, which is, can having a clear-cut intention for awakening be helpful? And if so, how? And if not, why not? You know, it's the catch-22 that if you're seeking to be free, that seeking is actually potentially getting in the way of just being free. And that's an age-old problem that people might be aware of, but they haven't looked at the specifics of it, the details of it, and how we can maybe go around that problem or how we can use intention in a way that actually helps us versus hurts us. So I'm wondering how you have tended to look at that situation.
Well, I think that you're right that it is nuanced. It's not just black and white. And it's actually very tricky because, as you pointed out, sometimes the desire for awakening or for enlightenment is the very thing that keeps us from it. And the reason is that desire for something means I want something in the future that's going to be different from what's happening now. And awakening is only happening now and can only happen now because it is the dropping of any desire for the present moment to be different from what it is. However, on the other hand, you can't just sit around on the couch drinking beers and watching TV and expect any kind of shift in your spiritual awakening or your happiness level or your stage or progress towards enlightenment either. So it's quite tricky. I always think of it as having to do with effort. And we know that when there's a lot of effort, we're really not present in the moment. And when there's absolutely no effort, like I indicated before, sitting around on the sofa watching TV requires very little effort. That's not going to do it either. So I usually talk about what is the least possible effort required to keep your focus on awareness itself, apart from the content of awareness.
Yeah, that's tricky. And I think you nailed a lot of the key points. I want to go more deeply into them and share a couple stories. If you look at the word intention, it's already a red flag because it kind of sounds like in tension. And no one has ever tensioned their way into awakening.
Right.
It's actually, and we don't have the opposite word in relaxation as being something, but that's closer to how most people awaken. But I'm struck by how many teachers say, like Adyashanti, were, meditate 10 hours a day on the cushion and really efforted their way. And then eventually they said, well, that doesn't work. They gave up, and wham, they awakened. So I think in a lot of cases, being in tension, being in crisis, as somebody like also Eckhart Tolle or Byron Katie were, is actually a prelude to the full surrender to what is a hallmark of awakening. My question is, can I get to that full awakening without beating my head into concrete for 10 years? And I'm hoping that's the case. So let's explore maybe some ways of doing that. A few years ago, Burning Man just finished not long ago, and maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I went to Burning Man and I did a very interesting experiment. I had a little container that had a red pill and a blue pill in it. And like in the movie Matrix, where they show Neo the red pill and the blue pill, I would go up to strangers and say, would you like to take the red pill or the blue pill? The red pill representing taking a risk and finding out the truth of what's going on. The blue pill just represents going to sleep. And people would get a little nervous, like, well, what's in the pill? And I'd say, well, I can't tell you that, because if I told you what was in the red pill, that would be like taking the blue pill. But what was really going on is both pills were just a omega-3 vitamin. One was painted red, one was painted blue. And most people, being that it was Burning Man, were taking the red pill. But right before they took it, I would say, I want you to know that this is a magic pill, and it will do whatever you say it will do for 6 hours. So what do you want it to do? And, people would say things like, I'd like to open up to love, or I'd like to open up to ecstasy, or the peace of my being, or whatever they might say. Generally people wanted to have an expanded experience of their heart and soul. And I'd say, okay, get clear on that intention. And when you take the pill, know that for the next 6 hours, that the pill will work like magic. It's all placebo, obviously. Well, what ended up happening was that people kept coming up to me and saying that pill worked incredibly well. And they said that they had these incredibly expansive experiences, and it was amazing. And a lot of them thought that I'd actually put something in the red pill, which I had not, which just showed me the power of intention, the power of placebo. And I don't know if you read it, Brian, but in last week's Time magazine, there was like a 7-8 page article about the power of placebos. And really quickly, what it said is that about 40% of the effect of any medication is due to the placebo effect. And in some conditions, placebos work a lot better than the actual medicine. That the medicine is actually eliminating, is doing an opposite effect, which I found fascinating. And there's medicines such as antidepressants that are shown to be no better than placebos in most cases, that are multi-billion-dollar-year industries. So here, the power of intention has been proven to not just have medical benefits, but also mood-altering benefits. And I think that it's an underestimated approach to spirituality and awakening, and that it really hasn't been played with along those lines. But there's definite possibilities in it.
Fascinating. I think it's true that we humans are very suggestible,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the reason placebos work. Although in some studies I've read about on placebos, they've found that there is a particular suite of illnesses that they work better on and
Yes.
work consistently on, and not on all illnesses. But for those, they really do work, in addition to many other forms of suggestibility. In fact, in Eric Vance's book, Suggestible You, he talks about magical thinking and the psychological tests for what psychologists call magical ideation. And people who scored low on magical ideation also scored low on their ability to enjoy life. And people who scored high on magical ideation actually were shown to have higher levels of dopamine. And I thought that was fascinating because I always scoffed at magical thinking and poo-pooed it and tried to steer people away from it. And yet I know a lot of people who really do engage in magical thinking, and somehow it seems to help them. It helps them stay focused. It helps them stay on track. It helps them to even to achieve things in life. So it's a very, very interesting topic.
And if you believe in magical thinking, or you believe in a guru, or you believe in a transmission, or you believe in a pill is going to do something for you, it probably will.
I wouldn't say it probably will. I would say it possibly will.
Depending on the person.
Yes, as a matter of fact, some people are more innately suggestible than others. That was another study that was done, that was written about in that book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, I have sometimes actually done this for myself, where I will, in the morning, I'm embarrassed to admit this, but in the morning I'll say, by taking this pill, I will open up to being aware of awareness. That's my intention. Or by taking this sugar pill, or whatever it is, I will open my heart to the expanded love that we all are. That's clarifying my intention. I mean, you don't have to take a pill, but a pill is a metaphor, and in America we take pills for whatever we want. So it's kind of like borrowing from this conditioning that we have, and it just kind of seals the deal for me. And I must say that on those days that I get really clear about my intention might be to use a certain technique as well. But the days I get really clear, I would say those days I tend to have more peace, or tune in to the fact that I am peace and I am awareness, more than the days that I don't, just because I am clear as to the direction I want to go in. Now, if you hold on to that too much, like we talked about earlier, where you're efforting with that intention, I don't think that happens, because ultimately we're trying to let go of ourselves, not create a new one. But I think it's an interesting technique for people to explore. And as I mentioned in my Burning Man story, people are often literally flabbergasted with the effect, because some people are very prone to suggestion or imagination, and they can actually use that as a tool in their favor if they use it correctly.
Well, I think that the technique that you mentioned of waking up with an intention can be very useful. And here's why. We are so easily distracted. We are distracted by anything from television to news to video games to our appetites and desires and our thoughts about the past and our worries about the future and our desires to fix ourselves, to fix other people, and to fix the world, that often we really need the intention to stay on track, the intention to repoint when these distractions arise, to repoint our attention, to refocus to awareness itself, to what is experiencing all of this. And in that case, I think intention is really good, because it sets us up for the day and helps us have reminders all day long to do that little shift in attention to the background, to the ground of being that experiences the world and ourselves. because, as we've mentioned many times on this program, that's where happiness resides.
Yeah, and later I will be doing a guided meditation that I think can be very useful for people to do in the morning that deals with intention. Another story, many years ago, I don't know if you know this, Brian, but I was a psychic studies major at UC Santa Barbara.
No,
Did
I
you know
didn't
that?
realize. No, I didn't realize that. How cool
Yeah,
is
so we
that?
would study people with ESP and psychokinesis and clairvoyance under lab conditions. And it was very interesting. And one of the things we learned was that people's psychic abilities, whether it was trying to bend a spoon or trying to affect a random number generator or whatever, tended to be much higher when they experience intense intention followed by complete letting go. So we had a woman come into our lab who tried to bend spoons. And now I'm an amateur magician, so I kind of am well qualified to see if somebody is using sleight of hand this way. And we could not find any way that she was using sleight of hand, despite our best attempts. And the way that she would bend the spoon is she would hold the spoon at the very end of it, the last half inch, and she would scream at it and intend for it to bend. It was kind of a funny scene, just screaming, bend your damn spoon, and just screaming for like a minute. And then she would just take a deep breath and let it go and relax. And as she was just relaxing and focusing on talking to me or doing a crossword puzzle, the spoon would just bend. And it was amazing to watch, but it made me realize that somehow she was like completing some kind of cosmic circuit. And I've seen that in my own life, that sometimes having a very intense intention and like really wanting it, really getting in touch with my yearning for it, and then completely letting it go and allowing the forces of the universe or the river of time to just move me automatically in that direction seemed to be what worked best. And I'm wondering if you have a similar view or if you've had any experience along those lines.
Well, I think that's a really strong idea. When you said intense intention followed by complete letting go, that struck a chord with me. I thought, oh yes, that's the real combination that we're talking about. Without the second, though, complete letting go, I think the intention may not be all that's necessary. It's the combination of the two, having a clear idea, a clear intention, even an intense intention, as you mentioned, and then really completely letting go of the results, I think could be very interesting to look into.
Well, to me, that's kind of like an analogy would be a battery. A battery isn't just a plus part or a minus part. It has to have both. And with both, a circuit is created. And somehow the intense intention followed by the intense letting go, I think seems to, in my experience, create some kind of circuit that good things happen. And it takes a certain amount of faith or trust in the universe once you have that intention to just really let it go, allow grace to intervene, or allow the universe to do what it's supposed to do, and see that this is in some way is a magical property of the universe or grace or spirituality that we all can tap into.
It's interesting, in many reports of people's awakenings that I've read or heard about, there's often that combination. There's an intense desire, but along with that, a frustration. You mentioned Adyashanti. Adyashanti said he felt that he completely failed at meditation over many, many years of trying. And then one day he just said, that's it, I give up. I completely give up. And something totally opened up within him at that point. On the other hand, if you start, you say, oh, I'm just going to go directly to the giving up part. I'm just going to give up all attempts of doing anything. For some reason, that doesn't seem to work either, partly because we're giving up in order to get something. We're not really, truly giving up control. But the other reason is that we really have shown ourselves that our own individual effort doesn't work. We must allow something larger than ourselves to come into the picture, to have sway, to have an effect, to allow it to do its thing. And without both of them, it's either gritting your teeth and efforting, or it's, oh, I'm just going to not do anything. I'm just going to make no effort. I'm going to just do nothing and then expect something to happen. And then when it doesn't, you wonder why.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely threading a needle. I think everybody has to find or have that experience of intense intention followed by intense letting go. And then, as you said, you can't then have the expectation, okay, I did that, now I can drink a beer and wait for the money to flow in or wait for the awareness to flow in.
Right. Now, just to play the devil's advocate on the power of intention a little bit, I've probably talked about this before, but I remember probably what I think of as my very first glimpse into this sort of awakened feeling of joy and happiness for no reason, unrelated to circumstances, happened when I was watching a video of a teacher named Gangaji, who used to study with H.W.L. Punja, who's known as Papaji, who was an Indian teacher in the latter part of the 20th century, 70s, 80s, 90s, he taught, and who had studied with Ramana Maharshi. And I was watching this video of her, and she was talking about the time she spent with Papaji. And she said, Papaji asked her this question: what if you had absolutely no intention? And this went through me like a thunderbolt. And all of a sudden, I started to laugh uncontrollably. Mm-hmm. And part of it was the absurdity of the idea of having no intention, because, of course, I thought, well, isn't that an intention? But the deeper laughter was the relief. Something relaxed, something released inside when I imagined having absolutely no intention whatsoever. Something very deep let go within me and realized that I did not always have to be the driver of experience. I could be the passenger at times. And I did not have to control everything. Not only did I not have to control everything, I really didn't have the control over things that I thought I did. But all of that is after the fact analysis. During that moment, what happened was just a letting go of the idea of having any intention at all, and a surge of joy and happiness unrelated to circumstances.
That's a great story. You know, I think a metaphor or analogy I come up with is if you have like a Christian cross in front of you, imagine the horizontal axis. On one side is, say, too much intention, too much seeking, too much efforting. And on the other side is of that horizontal axis is too little. You know, you're drinking beers, you're watching TV, probably nothing's going to happen. But when you find that sweet spot in the middle, that's where you go into the vertical cross and you go up. So I think somehow you might have been efforting too much And the idea of having no intention kind of got you to that sweet spot where you could really let go into a higher aspect of your true self. And we're always, depending upon what side of the continuum we're on, we need a little push to the other side. Adyashanti needed to let go. The person who's watching TV might need to really have that intense intention. So there's no one size fits all, as we've often talked about on this podcast, that we're trying to understand principles that lead to awakening rather than the one thing that's going to do it for everyone.
Yes, that's right. And I do think that if you understand these principles, then you can let your own experience be your guide, and you can experiment and play and see what works for you.
Speaking of what works for us, how about we do a guided meditation on intention? Are you ready?
That sounds lovely.
Okay, well, for those listeners, if you can possibly find a place where you don't have to have your eyes open and you're not distracted, we'll do a little bit of intention and see from this guided meditation what effect it has on you. So make yourself comfortable. And I want you to begin by thinking, what is an intention that you would like for yourself? I'm talking an inner intention. We're not talking about manifesting money or cars or whatever, but some intention for your awareness, for your being, for your heart. Something that when you think, my intention for the rest of the day is, it feels poetic to you. And if possible, besides just words for that intention, see if you can come up with an image or a visualization of what that would look like. If you are successful with this intention, if it completed a cosmic circuit and it really happened today for you, what would your day look like? What would it look like as you ate your food? If this intention fully manifested in your day, what would it look like as you talk to people? How would you feel inside yourself as you moved around during your day? Once again, say the phrase and or the image of this intention, and let it, like a rock entering a pond, go deep within you and feel it from the center of your being. See if you can magnify or expand that deep yearning and feel it intensely, like a deep hunger. Now imagine as you take a deep breath that you can fully release that intention and know that it has entered into a cosmic circuit where grace and faith and your ability to let go and trust take over. And as you let go of that intention and just feel your body in the present moment, you can know that you are taken care of. You're pointed in the right direction. And now all you need to do is relax, let go, open, and trust. And when you're ready, take as much time as you need. Slowly come back to the room. Slowly begin to open your eyes. And know that your intention is happening and is already part of your true nature. Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be back. From a lovely place.
So I hope if you found that little intention meditation resonated with you, feel free to use it. Feel free to play with it and experiment with how to adapt it to what feels right for you. And see if it seems to move you in the direction that you want to go. I personally have found it quite useful. And just like any tool, the more you use it, the more you learn about it, and the more it becomes part of you.
I loved how it contained both of the elements that we spoke of earlier, intention and letting go.
Mm-hmm. And if you find that spoons are bending around you, let us know. Or other miracles of love and grace, even though they may be more subtle, they are just as powerful, because when you open to love, or when you open to being awareness, that is quite a miracle.
And if you do find yourself bending spoons with your mind, just remember, it's a distraction. What is experiencing the bending of the spoon?
Always going back to that. That's a good reminder.
I know, I'm hopeless. I always go back to that.
Well, you have a very strong intention, my friend. I appreciate that.
I do, yes, indeed.
Now let it go.
Okay. Poof.
And the same to our fellow explorers out there.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you intended to listen to our entire podcast and did our meditation. Now go forth, let go, and allow grace to do the rest. We look forward to sharing more with you in our next podcast. Until then, keep exploring.
Thank you for listening to Awareness Explorers. To learn more, you can check out our website at awarenessexplorers.com. Please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, or your favorite podcast app. And we'd love it if you would post a review. And please share our link on Facebook and with family and friends, because knowing yourself as awareness is the greatest gift you can give yourself or someone you love.